Welcome to the Slam and Jam here on Friday on the Athletic NBA Show. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht. With me, as always, is my good friend, Alex Spears. Alex, tell me what happened in the NBA this week.
Well, Andrew, the NBA is back, and it all began on Tuesday in the Mile High City, where the Denver Nuggets received their championship rings and began their title defense with a 119-107 victory over the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, in the lead up to the game, the Lakers had made it known that they'd heard all the offseason noise from Denver and couldn't wait to see the Nuggets again. Unfortunately for the Lakers, the Nuggets look a lot like the team that beat LA 4 straight times in last year's playoffs, with Nikola Jokic dropping a casual 29, 13, and 11 in the victory. On Wednesday, NBA fans who had waited months to see the start of a new season were rewarded with more games they could ever hope to watch or even follow. 12 games in total. In Brooklyn, we had a matchup of two megawatt stars, Max Strus and Cam Thomas, who combined for 63 points, including 7 threes from Strus and 36 points from Thomas, which was a record for most points by a reserve in a season opener. In the end, however, it was the real star, Donovan Mitchell, who scored 10 of his 27 in the fourth quarter, including the go-ahead three to give the Cavs the 114-113 win. In New York, it was a homecoming of sorts for Kristaps Porzingis, a homecoming where your family boos you and starts FU chants when you walk in the door. Porzingis was unfazed in his Celtics debut, however, scoring 30 and 8 and helping the Celtics to a 108-104 victory over the Knicks. And in Orlando, the score was 67 Magic, 64 Rockets with 5 minutes left in the third quarter. From that point on, Orlando would outscore Houston 49-22 to get the 30-point win, 116-86. Cole Anthony led all scorers with 20 points. We also saw the return of Jonathan Isaac, who looked pretty healthy in his 14 minutes. And for the Rockets and new head coach Ime Udoka, not exactly the opening game you're looking for in year 4 of a rebuild. On Thursday, we had 2 great matchups. First, in Milwaukee, it was Dame time. In his first game with the Bucks, Damian Lillard put up 39 points, including 14 straight in the fourth quarter, to push the Bucks past the Sixers 118-117. And the Sixers, who are without James Harden, looked pretty good. Fun even. Feel good. Easy to root for. What feels so different about these new Sixers? Tyrese Maxey put up a dominant performance in the loss, going for 31, 4, and 8. Kelly Oubre, a.k.a. Tsunami Papi, scored 27. Will the good vibes continue? Of course not. It's the Sixers. The league is already investigating why the Sixers rested James Harden in Game 1. Harden appears to be on a path to return to the court for the Sixers, a team he once upon a time said he would never play for again, and there is no news on any potential Harden trade. In the second game, the Phoenix Suns, who are already without Devin Booker and Bradley Beal in Game 2 of the season, almost pulled out an impressive win in LA, losing 195 to the Lakers. Kevin Durant did his part, scoring 39 in the game, but it was the king, LeBron James, age 38, year 21, who came up big in the fourth quarter, scoring 10 of his 21, including 2 consecutive layups in the final 2 minutes to help the Lakers pull away. Andrew, it's great to have the NBA back, and what a week it was.
What a week it was indeed. And, we prepare all this time. We think all off season. We have the draft, we have free agency. All these things are coming together, and in our brains, we feel like we know exactly what's going to happen. We know exactly what these teams are going to look like. And then we get one night of basketball, and then maybe does it change everything that we think about these teams, Al? I don't know. So we're going to go through 5 different ideas.
Yeah.
Are we going to stay locked into these ideas, or are we going to pump the brakes a bit?
Yeah, it's you can say it's an overreaction, but on the other hand, we know we're not going to go 100% with our preseason takes. So maybe it's actually smart to already start rethinking our takes after one game.
We're just self-reflective is all we are.
That's all. We came up with 5 takes that you and I both generally agreed upon in the preseason. Yeah. Maybe not like exactly, but pretty close. And we're just going to go through them and see if we're already starting to rethink things or if we're going to double down. And we're going to start with Dallas as a team relying too heavily on a rookie center. Now, this was one of my main concerns about the Mavs in the offseason was just how much they were asking of Derek Lively as a rookie
Yeah.
center. It felt
Hmm.
like so much of the defensive ceiling of this team was resting on his shoulders. And given his time at Duke, it was unclear how much he was going to contribute offensively out of the gate. I mean, it took him, half the season at Duke to really start looking like that lottery prospect.
Yep.
Well, as it turns out, one of his teammates at Duke was not Luka Doncic, and that really helps. So we get to game one against the Spurs. It's Wemby's debut. And surprisingly, Derek Lively, he doesn't start, despite starting all 4 preseason games. A little bit of a surprise. He does end up playing 12 minutes in that first half, and then he starts the second half, ends up playing 31 minutes, finishes with 16 and 10 on 7 of 8 shooting, game high plus 20. Now, listen, with all these takes, Andrew, it's one game. But the reason I think I might be rethinking my feelings about the Mavs is just how good he looked, specifically in his offensive role. Like the
Yeah.
putbacks, the lobs, the instant chemistry with Luka, just being able to go up and get anything Luka threw up there. The overall energy he brought to the court for the Dallas Mavericks in game one. He looked like a fully formed version of the player Dallas wants and needs him to be offensively in game one. And so I'm looking at that and I'm starting to rethink the Mavs a little bit because if I'm not expecting Derek Lively to average 16 and 10, but if he can be just a solid NBA player, which I kind of already am feeling kind of confident about, maybe I need to be a little bit higher on the Mavs. Because in the preseason, the Western Conference is so tough to predict. And you got to choose some teams to be bad, either falling out of the play-in altogether or ending up at 9 and 10. And I had kind of just always defaulted to the Mavs just because I didn't like what I saw from Luka and Kyrie last year. I had big concerns about the defense, which wasn't really good last year. They're bringing in some new pieces that I like, but I just didn't know how it all come together. And at least for that one night, it looked really good. And the piece that I was kind of most concerned about, how much can Derek Lively give right off the bat, it looked pretty good, Andrew.
Yeah, and they really needed him to step up. I mean, they started Derek Jones Jr. as their one of their
They did.
bigs, along with Grant Williams, and Dwight Powell was out with an illness. They're just going to refuse to play Rashawn Holmes, I guess. Who is just I really know what's going on there, to be honest.
He was so
But
good once upon a time.
I know, I thought so too. And Derek Lively's stepped in and played the role that they needed him to play. Now, there's also an element of how prepared were the San Antonio Spurs for Derek Lively the second.
Oh,
Probably not super prepared. There's not a real scouting report on a lot of rookies through the first few weeks of the season. When there's a scouting report on him, I want to see what it looks like.
So you're not rethinking yet.
I'm not rethinking it yet. I think he had a great debut. I think he's going to be a good pro. Is he going to make this impact on a nightly basis? I want to wait and see before I'm saying I feel really good about it. They're still going to play a lot of Dwight Powell when it comes down to it. They'll play Maxi Kleber. They'll play Grant Williams. Like those 3 bigs are going to play a lot. Derek Jones Jr. is going to play. They're going to play those guys a lot. And I want to see what it looks like when Dwight Powell is healthy and they have like more of a solid rotation in there. They needed Derek Lively the second in this game against the Spurs, and he showed up in a big way. Do they rely on him still when Dwight Powell is in the mix? I want to know. I think they should because he's the future, and you need young players to develop alongside Luka. So I really think they should. But I also want to see when all those guys are available, what are they doing? Because I think that maybe Derek Jones Jr. goes to the bench and they kind of play a jumbo lineup, but it's probably like Kleber going to the bench. And then Dwight Powell starting. And then Kleber's coming off the bench. Does that mean how many minutes for Derek Lively? I just want to see what it looks like when they're all there.
Okay. Fair enough, Andrew. So what is take number 2?
Take number 2, the Detroit Pistons as a lock to be a bottom 3 team. And I honestly thought, man, this is going great. Bogdanovich is out. Monte Morris is out. They need both those guys to kind of help elevate the team. And maybe that's not right. maybe things are going to be a little bit different for Detroit, mostly because of Cade Cunningham, who looked like a star in night one. I was so impressed with Cade's ability to get kind of whatever shot that he wanted against the Miami Heat, which there's a difference between regular season Miami Heat and postseason Miami Heat. And I think that we need to realize this, that the Miami Heat were one of the most unwatchable teams and had one of the most unwatchable offenses in the NBA last season. They were miserable. In fact, they were in the play-in last year. And so I don't want to act like they did something insane by just staying in this game with Miami. However, 13 of 27, like 27 shots, that's big time for his debut this season for Cade Cunningham. I really like what he brought. I thought Jalen Duren was awesome. 17, 14, 4 assists, 4 blocks. He was phenomenal. I thought that even Asar Thompson brought just a lot of different things to the table that they needed. Killian Hayes being second in shot attempts was not exactly what I was hoping to see from Monty Williams on night one. But they looked pretty good. And Bogdanovich is not going to be out for the whole season. And so that when they get him back, I think he's going to help. They did play Joe Harris in this game. It was curious to me seeing Jaden Ivey only get 17 minutes to Killian Hayes' 31. That's a little perplexing to me. But it's really all about Cade Cunningham. We've seen with a team like the Thunder, who weren't a bottom 3 team most of their time when they were tanking. They weren't one of like the absolute worst teams in the league because they had a guy in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Is Cade Cunningham that level of player? Now, if we're looking for concerns, he didn't get to the free throw line one time. Didn't shoot one free throw in this game. That was a little unusual. But other than that, he looked like a star. 33 and 9, a steal, 3 turnovers. He was phenomenal. And if he can do that, he can help elevate guys like Duren, Beef Stew. Marvin Bagley played some good minutes off the bench too. And then if they start getting their veterans back, I think Monte Morris is going to help quite a bit. Bogdanovich is going to help. Maybe they're not in the bottom of the league anymore.
Yeah, I think with Cade, first of all, we should point out a friend of the show, Sam Vecini, put out an extended video today looking at Cade's performance in that first game. And you kind of drew the comparison to Shai. It's hard not to draw that comparison looking at some of the screenshots, because similar to what Shai went through these last couple seasons as OKC, there's not very much spacing right now in Detroit. And so you'll get these screenshots where Cade has gotten into the paint and there are 5 Miami Heat players right there because they do not care about anyone else on this team.
No spacing.
And not worried at all. And for him to manage that and still score 30, like that's kind of what you saw from Shai these last couple of seasons, where even despite the spacing, despite teams overloading on him, he was still able to get his points. I mean, that's really the true sign of a superstar. So that's got to make you feel good if you're a Pistons fan. The other thing I would mention is that, at least for one night, it felt like they might have an identity, and it might be a defensive identity. Now, Monty Williams threw out that starting lineup, which, as you mentioned, has Killian Hayes taking a decent amount of shots. Feels a little weird. Okay, I don't know if I love it, but for a team, and this is true with like all bad teams, when you're bad, you're usually in the bottom 10 for both offense and defense. And the question as you make that turn is, like, which side are you going to be better at first? Which side is going to help you jump up in the standings? And at least for one night, you could begin to see the vision with the Pistons as kind of this like hard-nosed defensive team, then relying on Cade to kind of carry them offensively. And you need that identity once you start making that turn as a bad team. So I do think that was exciting. The other piece of this has nothing to do with the Pistons, is just looking at the rest of the league, looking at the performances of teams like Washington, Portland, Houston.
Yeah, about that.
And wondering, okay, well, maybe they aren't as bad as I thought they might be. So yeah, I am rethinking it a little bit, but I definitely want to see more. I think tonight's game, they're playing Charlotte. I think that's a big one, because if they're going to make this turn, like whoever wins that game is kind of the team I'm going to be feeling better about in this early season stretch. So I actually think that's kind of a big game for them.
It's a must-win game. Let's just be honest.
Must-win.
This is a must-win for Detroit for this next era. Like, go get it, Detroit.
Okay, take number 3. the Toronto Raptors as a dysfunctional, bad vibes mess. Now, in the preseason, I think you and I had pretty significant doubts about Toronto. Whether it was the loss
Yeah.
of Fred VanVleet, the weird media day comments from Masai about Pascal, the impending free agencies for like half the roster, it just all felt very combustible. So then they have this opening night game. They're at home against a Minnesota team that many people are very high on. And, the Raptors offense certainly didn't cause me to rethink anything. The Raptors offense is going to be a work in progress. But
Yep.
defensively, they looked pretty terrifying. And
Yeah, they
maybe it
did.
was just getting tired of Nick Nurse last season, but it just felt like the Raptors kind of lost some of their identity last year, lost some of their mojo. I mean, you'd look at the roster and you'd be like, why is this not like one of the
Yeah, this
elite
should be
defensive
better.
teams in the league?
Yeah.
And last night, like kind of across the board, and man, I kind of not making fun, but looking at the drop off from Fred VanVleet to Dennis Schroeder, it was like, wow, like they really screwed this up. On the other
Mhm.
hand, like Schroeder does fit in kind of well with this version of the Raptors. And then you look at someone like Scotty Barnes, whose defense has been maligned over his first 2 seasons. And he didn't have a perfect game, but he was 3 steals away from a 5-by-5, Andrew. We could have had a
I know.
game 1 5-by-5, which
That'd have
is
been so exciting.
one of our favorite stat lines because it is so incredibly rare and is such a
Yeah.
cool thing to get. And he is definitely on the radar now. If you get that
Yeah.
close, like now I'm kind of feeling it. I'm kind of hoping we get a 5-by-5. But I don't know. After that game, I'm thinking back to last week with our surprise team, and Toronto just missed the cut because their over under
Yeah.
was 36.5. If they had been 35.5 and we could have potentially picked them, I compare them to some of these other teams we were looking at. And I feel pretty confident that the Toronto Raptors have something. They have a defensive identity. Whereas these other teams, I'm kind of just hoping for it. And after game 1, I don't know. I'm feeling a little bit better about the Raptors overall. And shout out to their new coach, because that was another piece of it that we just didn't know how that was going to play out. Those the post game vibes in the locker room just looked incredible, and it
Yeah.
seemed like that was the big thing that was missing last year. So yeah, I'm rethinking the Raptors a little bit.
Yeah, I am too. They didn't even play well. They only shot 40% from the field in that
Yeah.
game. This is a very low scoring game. It was 97-94, which is very unusual in this day and age, but they can play better than that. Like Scotty's going to play better than that offensively. OG is going to be better. Siakam was only 5 of 17. Like we know that Pascal Siakam can be better than that. So there's a little bit of a ceiling here. Then you have Gary Trent Jr. coming off the bench. You got Grady Dick, who just barely played at all. But, it's fun. There are fun vibes around the Raptors again. And I think that's only a good thing. Because when the Raptors are good, the NBA is more fun. So I'm excited for this era of the Raptors. And then, on the other side, the Timberwolves were kind of a mess. There seemed to be a lot of agendas going on in Minnesota. So that's something to just put a pin in a little bit. It was a little bit strange to me.
All right, Andrew, what is our fourth take to cover this week?
Our fourth take is the Grizzlies as a lock for a playoff team. And I felt very confident about this. I felt overly confident about this. I thought they could still just be one of the best teams in the league. And then we hear about the Steven Adams injury. And I watched them, and obviously Steven's a big player to miss. I think he was going to give them some stability offensively and defensively. He makes them a good rebounding team on his own. And with him gone, they are a abysmal rebounding team. They are going to really struggle. Xavier Tillman had 12 rebounds in his first debut here this season. That's great. But man, there's nobody else that's a good rebounder. Jaren Jackson Jr., notable bad rebounder. I mean, they're starting Zaire Williams, who's not a good rebounder either. Marcus Smart, who you think should grab rebounds, had 0 in game 1. And then their bench, I don't know, Al. Their bench is rough. Laravia, David Roddy. But man, they played a short bench. And those guys, Luke Kennard, who is going to be kind of a big player off the bench for them, he missed all 5 of his shots. He's out in concussion protocol now. It's going to be a really rough start to the season. I think they may be forced to make a deal for somebody. I find it curious. I think that John Conchar will probably play because Luke Kennard's out. I found it a little curious that he didn't play at all in the first game, but they have no depth. They're losing some of their most important players. Ja's sidelined for 25 games. A lot of this is going to be on Desmond Bane, who played really good. He had 31 points on 22 shots, 5 boards, 5 assists, 2 steals, and a block. He was really good. But then beyond that, Jaren Jackson was not very good in that first game against the Pelicans. Got dunked on big time by Zion. And then their bench is not there. There's just not a whole lot going on with this team. And they just don't have any guys that can handle the basketball as a primary handler. Marcus Smart and Desmond Bane, they can handle, but those are their 2 best ball handlers.
Yeah.
It is a rough position with the rebounding, with the ball handlers, and the depth. This could be a team fighting for the play-in, and with how stacked the Western Conference is, if they don't get it together or if they don't make some trades to fortify their front line, they may not make the playoffs at all, because somebody's going to be left out at the end of the day that is good and that wanted to be there. And if Memphis can't get it together, this could be the team. Now, when Ja comes back, I think they'll stabilize some. They'll be electric. But until then, 25 games is a lot of games. And if you're way behind the 8 ball because of injuries and depth, we could be looking at a pretty rough situation for Memphis.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons why you were positive about this team, even with the injuries, is that they had shown themselves to be so resilient in the past.
Yeah.
But man, looking at that rotation from night one and just kind of realizing the toll that all of these injuries or suspensions have taken. I mean, they're missing their starting point guard, their starting center, their best player off the bench. And at some point there has to be a breaking point. And yes, it's only one game and it wasn't like they got blown out or anything. But just looking at that rotation, it just feels like this is going to be a long 25 games if the roster stays as it currently looks. We're going to talk to Danny Meringue later. Maybe Time Lord is a potential trade target for them down the road at some point, because they need someone like that. I mean, watching Triple J have to guard Jonas Valanciunas in the post, who, when people talk about, we're always talking about Chet and how Chet's so skinny and everyone's worried about like Jokic and Embiid. Like the secret guy I'm worried about is Jonas Valanciunas, because when he gets matched up on smaller dudes, he just eats. And so maybe that was just a really bad matchup and they're going to bounce back and they're going to look better. They'll get some more contributions from that bench. Like we expect Luke Kennard to just be a solid player. I mean, he had a bad game.
He should be better.
But at the same time, looking at that roster and that rotation, it just looks so thin to even what we saw last year when they were struggling with injuries. And so, yeah, I don't know if I'm rethinking it yet. I want to see a few more games to see how they play. But
yeah,
it didn't look good. Even though it wasn't like they were awful. They didn't get blown out or anything. But it just it seemed to suggest bad things coming.
Yeah, I'm on the edge of rethinking this one. This is where
One
I'm
step
at.
closer to the edge.
Yep, I'm about to break.
Fifth take. The juicy one, Andrew. The Wizards as a team full of capable veterans. This is something we told you a week ago. Hey, look at this team. Here's a reason to pick them as a surprise team. Look at all these vets. They got vets coming out of the woodwork. We named like 8 guys who were like, yeah, we feel pretty good about all these guys as NBA rotation players. And, we mentioned that the Grizzlies lost, but it wasn't like it was a blowout. Well, this game, the Wizards let the Indiana Pacers score 143 points.
Yeah, they did.
And their defense, at least for one game, was the worst in the league, according to Clean Glass. It was terrible. And it did make me start rethinking, like, oh, maybe this is just the worst team in the league, and maybe we should have locked their under, actually.
Maybe so. However, like Indy's going to be one of the more high-powered offenses in the league.
It's true. And they were running.
They were awesome. They shot 52% from the field, 46% from three, 91% from the line. They were 50, 40, 90 as a team. And it's not like the it's not like the Wizards weren't just like helping them with that. I think they were. I think they were helping them with that. But I mean, the Pacers hit 23s in this first game. They were
Yeah.
20 of 43. I mean, that is a lot of threes. And so I'd like to see the Wizards in a few more games before I just throw it out, because I still look at the roster. I'm like, you know what? I still do kind of like a lot of the guys that are on this team. Now, will it come together? And here's the thing: like, what I'm asking of them.
All I'm asking,
Al, is for them to be below 500. Like, I'm not asking for them to be actually good.
That's true. That's true.
So they just need to be not the worst team in the league. They need to not be this abysmal.
So you're saying throw that game out. Let's forget about it.
I'm just wiping it from my brain, from my big dumb brain, and just hoping that maybe things come together for them, because I still do like a lot of the players that are on this team, but we're probably heading for a disastrous season where they get a top 5 pick in the draft. It's more likely where we're headed.
Now, Andrew, before we go to our guest, there actually is a bonus take I wanted to present to you.
All right.
Kelly Oubre Jr. as a player who has a 0% chance of making the Hall of Fame. Are you sticking with that, or are you rethinking it based on last night's game? You've never been a fan of Tsunami Papi.
Oubre blowing up in a loss. It felt too familiar. Familiar.
Some of the shots he was taking were legitimately crazy.
They were.
He looked amazing.
He looked great.
I hope it continues.
He's a lot of fun, and they played him a lot. And they need scoring. Is where the Sixers are right now. Is like they certainly need scoring. They need scoring off the bench for sure. Just because they have these dead parts of their roster, like PJ Tucker, just 0 points in 26 minutes, and like that's not going to be an uncommon thing for him. And then you look at who else is off the bench. Like Pat Bev is not a scorer. Jaden Springer is not ready yet. Paul Reed's not a scorer. Danny Green's not a scorer. So where are the points coming from exactly?
Tsunami Papi.
Tsunami Papi is going to get those points. However, Hall of Fame, no.
Do you think?
But I do. So
right, I'm on his basketball reference page. His Hall of Fame probability is currently 0.0%. By the end of the year, do you think we can get to 0.1?
No, I think that it may even go negative. We may even go negative here.
No.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. I don't know. Let's go for 0.1.
He might be in the Hall of Shame. All right, we will take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the Blazers.
All right, Andrew, it is time for our guest this week on the Wheel of Fandom. We spun the wheel, and we landed on the Blazers for the second straight year in a row. The Blazers were the team we landed on for the first week of the season. It's actually kind of nice, because it was very easy to come up with questions about this team. And our guest today is Danny Meringue, host of the Jacked Ramsay's podcast, available on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find Danny's writing on the Jacked Ramsay's Patreon page. And if you're driving around Portland, why not tune into 1080 The Fan, Danny and Dusty, noon to 3, Monday through Friday. Danny, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, no problem, guys. I love hopping with you guys. It's fun.
Well, let's jump into, before we jump into the current Blazers, let's start with an old Blazer. Damian Lillard played his first game for Milwaukee.
Guy.
Yeah, you remember that guy?
Yeah.
He played his first game for the Bucks last night, scoring 14 straight in the fourth to help the Bucks beat the Sixers. As someone who has covered Dame since he came into the league, what was the experience like seeing Dame time happen in another jersey?
I've seen a lot of Blazers fans on social media over the last 15 or so hours trying to like go through stuff. I was just happy. Like I was like a kid in a candy store. Like I've always just wanted to see him play with a dude. Like he had that for 3 years with LaMarcus, where you had like a legitimate All NBA teammate, and then he didn't for 8 years. And I think as NBA fans, we got robbed. And I think you're going to see this year, like when he made the top 75 list, I remember people going, "Well, should he really be there?" I'm sitting there going, yeah, he should. Wait till you see what he looks like with a guy like Giannis. And like they don't even have the it figured it out yet. I was texting with him this morning, and I said, couldn't even get a 50 piece, huh? And he said, yeah, if I could hit a damn 3. So he's in prime form already. It's very fun watching Milwaukee fans like, oh my God, this guy can do this. And I'm like, yeah, we watch that every night for 11 years. And I'm more than happy to share him, so to speak, with Milwaukee. It's kind of a kindred spirit franchise, as it were. I enjoyed it, and I can't wait until they figure the it out between Giannis and Dame and kind of how things work and how they optimize it. I think it's gonna fundamentally break teams, because you saw them last night running pick and rolls at 30 feet, and they didn't know what to do. And when your choices are, do I go up to Dame at 30 feet? Do I go with Giannis 4-on-3 in the middle of the floor? Or do I stick tight to Chris on one corner or Brook in the other? Like, you're asking yourself, like, how do I want to get beaten? Like, that's it's not a fun question, because you're gonna get beat hard. It's just a matter of like, can you get a stop, and then can you capitalize on the other end? It's like, I know we overanalyze this stuff so much, but I don't think there's a good way to really play this team yet. So it's gonna be whoever figures it out is a lot smarter than I am.
So moving back to the Blazers, they started their post-Dame era with a 123-111 loss to the Clippers.
Wasn't that close?
LA. Yeah, it wasn't that close.
Yeah, no.
Close.
Now, the game was notable for being Scoot Henderson's first professional game. He finished with 11-3-4 in 36 minutes. I know that you have been trying to temper fan expectations about Scoot all offseason.
Yes.
But what are your thoughts about how Portland should go about developing this type of player, a guy who was billed as this dynamic lead ball handler?
Well, game one, he look, I'm going to say this with the nicest way that I can. He was an abject disaster in the first half. He was completely and totally unplayable, which is fine. He's 19 years old playing against his idol in Russell Westbrook. Have you guys seen the picture?
Yeah,
of him grinning from ear to ear as Russ is dunking. Yeah, he's before the game. Scoot said, no, I'm not worried about this game, and it's just another game. I prepared myself for this, and I'm not really hyped to play Russ. And then you see that picture, and it's like, somebody's lying. It's like, but also it's cool. Like, yes, we want to see that. Have fun. But he was very bad, and that's to be expected. Through the preseason, this is why I was kind of tampering expectations so much. He wasn't really able to do much against first units for Phoenix and Utah, the two teams that Portland played in the preseason. And he, like, if you looked at his box scores, I think he had like a 24-4 game. And people were like, "Oh, look!" And I'm like, "Yeah, he did that against like the 10th through 16th guys on the roster. That's where that came from." And you saw that happen over and over. And then against the Clippers, he threw 3 quarters. He had two points, a rebound, and an assist. Finished with 11, 4, and 3 because he racked up 9, 3, and 9, 3, and 2 in the final 8 minutes against the 9th through 14th guys on the Clippers roster. Which again, step up from the G League. That's good. Like that's the growth you want to see. So to see a guy go from playing G League and like, look, as good as Scoot is, and as much as he profiles as a high level player, he had like subpar shooting splits in the G League. So like those are things that they're going to figure out. He's not going to come in the league and just crush the place as a shooter or even as a scorer. So you're going to see the Blazers really try to put in a position to succeed. You're going to see them run the offense through Anthony Simons and DeAndre Ayton, and Ayton had a rough start for his Blazers era, that's for sure. But they're going to run things through Anthony Simons, and that's to make life easier for Scoot. And I vehemently agree with that process, because watching Scoot play, he's not ready to run the team. I want to see them get through about 12, 15 games to see if he can continue to start. And if this was just like terrifying first game against the Clippers, against Westbrook, like all of the things kind of coming together at once. I'm really excited to see him tonight against Orlando, who, like, Markelle Fultz, good defender, Jalen Suggs, good defender, not Paul George, not Kawhi Leonard, not Robert Covington, and not Ty Lue, who's like, let's make this rookie's life a living hell on opening night, because you know they did, and they should. But let's see if he looks a little bit better tonight at home in Portland. But if we get to 12, 15 games and he's still really struggling, I wouldn't be opposed to them flopping the lineups, swapping Sharp to the starting lineup, putting Scoot on the bench with Malcolm Brogdon. I want to see Ant with one of the rookies or one of the young guys and Brogdon with one of the young guys, always having somebody to kind of lean on. Everybody's like, they need to start Ant or Scoot and Shea. And I'm just sitting there going, please, God, no. Please, no. We do not want to set these guys up for failure. Let them have something to lean on. So I think let's get through the first 12, 15 games and let's see what Scoot's got then.
You mentioned Anthony Simons. He's still only 24, which is so crazy. He's entering his 6th season in the league. Given how bad this team may be this season, he feels like a prime candidate for most underrated player in the league.
Yeah.
For people who aren't going to watch a lot of Blazers this year, what do you think is the biggest misconception about Ant's game?
That he's soft and doesn't play any defense at all. There's the EPM stats and the DRPM stuff is like that makes him look like one of the worst defenders in the league. I never thought he was that bad. I've plenty of stuff that needs to work on for sure. But also that he's just a shooter. He's not just a shooter. Number one, he's probably one of the 5 best shooters in the league off the bounce, catch and shoot. He's absolutely disgusting. He's got Dame-like range out to 30 feet where it's just a flick of the wrist. But I think people also forget because it was COVID year, he was a slam dunk champion. And I'm not saying that as like this big thing to tout. It's his athleticism. He's insanely bouncy. The thing about him has been like, can he figure this out? Is his free throw rate has been incredibly poor. He has a floater package, unlike pretty much any guard in the league. I don't know if you guys remember last year against the Suns early on, he hit a game-winning running skyhook over Mikal Bridges. His in-between game is filthy. But I want to see him get to the lane and you start generating free throws, finishing at the rim against the Clippers. He ended up drawing free throws, but he drove and he went off 2 and turned his wrist over, and he was going to try to dunk on Zubats. And it was like, oh, okay, you're going to be that guy. You're going to use your athleticism. Phil Beckner's his trainer. It's the same trainer as Dame. And he's talking to him back and forth. He's talked about how Ant over the last couple of years has really changed his game as far as like putting time into being more physical on the ball, showing that strength offensively and defensively, and then working on his change of pace. Because when he was a driver, it was one gear. His ability to kind of change speeds in between. And he showed that right away against the Clippers. Last year, he averaged about 8.5 drives a game in 26 minutes against the Clippers because they kind of screwed the rotations. And then I think they got down 30. Ant had 12 drives, and almost all of his drives were either led 2 points or led to good creation opportunities. And I think that's the thing, because he's going to have that number 1 billing. He's going to have kind of the Dame role. You're going to see him probably average like 25-6, 25-7. He's going to put up monster numbers. It's going to be how efficient can he be? Can he get to the free throw line? Can he, kind of bolster that without having to take quite as many shots in the mid range? So it's going to be fun when you're to look at the box score. You're going to look at NBA.com or whatever stat site you use. You're going to see Anthony Simons is like a top 15, top 18 scorer, and you're going to go, oh, that's weird. And then you're going to look at his percentages and go, you're to see him at like, 47, 40, 90 and go, oh, good Lord, he's shooting the hell out of the ball. So he's also going to be on a team that's going to win 25 games. So you kind of, figure that out.
The other recent high draft pick on the team is Shaedon Sharp. Showed some really big flashes in his rookie season. But what do you think he needs to improve most on? And where's his room for development this season?
I've seen a lot of people here say that he should start. I don't think he should start, and it's not a shot at him. I just don't think if a starting lineup of Anthony Simons, Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharp, Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton, there's not enough ball to go around. And they tried it in the preseason, and Shea just looked lost. And I was like, this isn't good. But when he's out there with Malcolm Brogdon, with the bench unit, he's basically 1B to Malcolm. And it's a good spot for him to be because the defense isn't shifting the attention to him specifically quite yet. His handle's not quite there. when he catches on the move, he's disgusting. There's just, I mean, you guys have seen the bounce the kid has. It's it's elevator bounce in a box. Like he doesn't need a runway. It's one step and he's at 42 inches. Against the Clippers, he had 2 putback dunks, which I thought was interesting. Is if he's going to be kind of an offensive rebounder, they're going to be bad. So might as well chase some offensive rebounds. And if he's got like a little bit of extra juice there, I think it's something worth exploring. His catch and shoot stuff. Shot really poor at Summer League. He was 1 of 6 or 1 of 7 opening night against the Clippers from 3. I don't really worry about that because his catch and shoot is pretty much cut and paste. It's very simple, very repeatable. I think it's just more of a, kind of being better prepared for shots. But for him, it's about game flow, being more intelligent. And he's already, I know it's only 1 game, but in the first game, he looked like he belonged, which last year there were times where you're like, I don't know if mentally he's quite there yet. Now it looks like he understands the processing. And I think that's the big thing. Because I think people tend to forget that this isn't a guy that went to the G League. This is a guy who sat at Kentucky for a year, who went from playing EYBL competition to NBA. Like the jump that he's making is it's insane. It's even more than what Scoot went through. So there's going to be some catch up, but like you start seeing things, and it's going to be interesting to see if he's more wing or if he's more like 1-2 as far as like positioning. Like, does he have the on ball juice? Because the handle's not quite there yet. He wants to kind of, it's kind of interesting. His game, and I know this is so Portland centric, but his game kind of reminds me a little bit of Brandon Roy, where when he catches, he really wants to go into that triple threat. Jab, poke, step over, spin out. And it's like cool, but also you can't really do that anymore unless you're the guy. And he's probably like 4th or 5th on the pecking order right now. So with that bench unit, you might be able to see him do that. But it's like, I want to see, can he, number one, like, are they going to allow him to kind of do that? Are they going to allow him to be on ball and be a little more creative? Right. And then kind of figure things out from there, because tools wise, he's got a lot, man. He's super strong. He knows how to use his body. And then on the defensive side of the ball, it's like, just keep learning, man. Like if he's going to be an offensive guy who is a 20-point a game guy, let's see if he goes down the Wiggins path. And like, he can be like guard Wiggins on the defensive side, where he's like, he's a plus defender because his strength, his athleticism, his IQ allows him to cut off angles and kind of body guys up, and not necessarily be a stopper, but be like a high level point of attack guy that you can rely on not needing to send a ton of help to.
So we covered, a lot of the main young guys, but fans of other teams seem to already be circling Portland like vultures, wondering which other vets they can pick off. What are your expectations for how Portland will handle the trade market this season? Like, are there any players that you would be completely surprised if they finish the season in Portland?
Honestly, a month ago, I would have said yes. Now the answer is no.
Really?
Just talking to people in the organization, I don't think they're in any hurry to move Brogdon, Time Lord, or Grant. I very strongly believe they value them as veterans and having their presence in the locker room, because this team, even with those guys, is the youngest average age in the league. They are under 24 years old. Like, they are dumb young. They need vets, and they do not want to be a process Sixers team. They don't want to just have nothing but kids out there. They want adults in the room to teach Scoot how to, like, they're very much looking at Ant as a guy to like be a leader. Like, he's the guy who they had their fan fest, which is like their preseason scrimmage. He was the guy on the microphone there's a bit of a hazing thing here in Portland where they make the rookies sing to the crowd. And that's the MC of that event is usually kind of like the guy on the team. And they had Ant doing that. The other thing they do to rookies here is they make them carry around a kid's backpack all year long. And that's usually filled with all the road treats for the bus and the plane. And Ant brought those out and handed those out. So like, they're trying to make him kind of be I think the immediate leader of the team. But again, like you said, 24 years old, like the Ant's still a baby. He's 2-3 years from his prime. Jeremy's 29. He just had a kid. I think number one, Jeremy's vibes are immaculate always. So he's just a good vibes guy to have. And the organization is definitely looking at him as probably being more of a dude too. He got Dame's locker, which in Portland, like that spot locker is a very prestigious locker. they gave Ant the LaMarcus Aldridge, Scottie Pippen locker. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, you're understanding kind of pecking order within the team. And then Malcolm Brogdon got one of the corner lockers as well. So you can kind of see how they're looking at things. And I thought they would look to flip Brog pretty quickly, but apparently he's down for the plan. Like if it means like he's going to play 20 minutes a night, okay. If he means he's playing 30 minutes a night, okay. He's saying and doing all the right things right now. Now, the Blazers could be trying to, show that the elbow was an older UCL injury is gone and showcasing him and maybe trying to pump up his value.
Mm-hmm.
That's always in the back of my head, but I don't think they're in a hurry to move anybody. Now, if Memphis comes over the top and says, here's 2 firsts and Brandon Clark for Time Lord, I bet you they start listening, but I don't think, unless they get blown away by an offer, I don't think they're in a hurry to make any real moves.
That's really interesting. Well, Danny, thank you for answering all of our Blazers questions. It is now time to play Andrew versus the Beat, our weekly trivia show where Andrew goes head-to-head against a beat writer. And this week, it's Danny Meringue. So, Danny, I've come up with 8 Portland Trail Blazers questions. Some are easy, some are hard. One is very hard. So you're going to choose a number between 1 and 8, and that'll correspond to a question. If you get it right, you'll get 2 points. If you get it wrong, Andrew will have a chance to steal, and we'll go back and forth until all the questions have been asked and answered. So where would you like to start? What number brings you good luck?
Let's go Brandon Roy. Let's go 7.
Question number 7. Well, that was unfortunately the hardest question.
Hey! It's fitting with Brandon's knees. All right.
Okay, Scoot Henderson was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, but he was not the number 1 ranked point guard in his class, according to 24/7 Sports. The number 1 ranked point guard was this player who was drafted in the 2022 NBA draft and is no longer with the team who drafted him.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh. Who would that be?
God, those COVID rankings were so dumb. Oh, man. No. Who's a point guard is already not with their team last year?
Somebody could have been the number 1 ranked point guard in his class.
Wow.
I don't know. Can't know. I'm trying to think of high school point guards that fell. No. I'm thinking of other point guards that fell off, and they're all like 2020 and 2021, 2022. I don't know.
It's okay. Like I said,
I don't even have a good guess.
The other ones are much easier. Andrew, do you have a guess?
It's not Ty Washington, is it?
It is not. It is Kennedy Chandler.
Oh my God.
He was the number 1 ranked point guard in his class. Drafted by Memphis, no longer in the league, as far as I know.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't
Right.
like Ty was the only guy I could think of that.
Yeah, that's a good guess.
See, I had Ty in my head as 2021, so I would have still screwed it up.
All right, Andrew, the board is yours.
Let's go number 1.
Question number 1. Damian Lillard played 11 seasons with the Portland Trail Blazers. He led the Blazers in total assists in every season except 1. Who was the only other player to lead the Blazers in assists during those 11 seasons?
Oh my gosh. I don't remember how much or if they did overlap very much. Did he and Andre Miller overlap? That name just like hits my brain. I don't know if they overlapped at all, though. I'm just going to say Andre Miller.
That is incorrect. Danny, do you know the answer?
He led the team in assists all the way up through his career, except for the injury year. That's the one, and I just don't know.
Oh boy!
And I don't know if it's. Is it Anthony?
That is correct.
There you go.
Yeah.
And even then, it was 221 to 212.
Yeah, it's stupid close. I knew it was close.
Wow. Interesting.
All right. So, Danny, you got a point, and you now have control of the board.
All right. Let's go number 5.
Question number 5. Now that Dame is in Milwaukee, other Blazers players can finally start trying to catch Dame and his franchise record 2,387 three-pointers. Who are the other Blazers players in the franchise's top 10 for three-pointers made? So how this works, Danny will give me a name, then Andrew will give me a name, and we'll go back and forth until one of you stumbles. So
Wes
top
Matthews.
10, Wes Matthews, number 3. Andrew.
CJ McCollum?
number 2.
I should have taken
Damn.
that one just to make it harder. Let's. How close up are we now? Should I grab one of the bottom ones?
He's toying with me here.
Well, I'm trying to remember the back end of this because I remember. God, how far back does that go? Terry should still be there. Terry Porter.
He is number 4.
Yeah.
Wow.
Andrew?
What about Simons?
Andrew? That is correct.
Ah,
He is number 7.
I was hoping you wouldn't get that one. Let's see.
Like it's the modern era guys are always the ones that like you can throw in there, you know, because they take so many more than everybody else.
He might have gotten pushed out, and this is risky.
Ooh.
Rudy Fernandez.
Rudy Fernandez? Danny? That is incorrect.
Ah!
The other names, Nick Batum, Damon Stoudemire,
Why didn't I go with Nick?
Steve Blake, Cliff Robinson, and Clyde Drexler as number 10.
Oh, man. Cliff.
All right, we have a tie game. Andrew, you have control of the board.
Number 2.
Question number 2. Who on the Blazers' current roster has played in the most playoff games?
Who on the current Blazers roster has played in the most playoff games
in their career?
Boy.
There's only 2 answers here. And it's no, it's not. It's not that close. I'm gonna go.
Oh no! Don't answer.
I know. I've got it in my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are you gonna say, Andrew?
Gosh, some of these guys have been hurt.
Interesting.
Is it Aiden?
Andrew? That is incorrect. It is not DeAndre Ayton. Danny, do you have a guess?
That was what I had it down to. Is one of 2, so it's either him or because Jeremy only got a couple games with OKC and Denver. Malcolm Pacers. Is it Time Lord?
It is Time Lord.
There you go.
Oh,
okay.
man.
Even with him being injured, he still played the most. Yeah.
They were in the playoffs every single year with him.
Yeah, he had 37 just in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Okay, Danny, you're up 2-1, and you have control of the board.
All right, let's go 3.
All right. This one, you get to choose who answers first. You can answer first and make Andrew go higher or lower, or you can make Andrew answer first. However, if he gets it exactly right, he does get a bonus point. Question is, what is Matisse Thybulle's career high in points for a single game?
Go ahead. I'll let you take the shot on this one, Andrew.
This could be risky.
Thybulle's career high. 17.
17. Okay, that is the bar. Danny, would you like to go higher or lower?
Going higher.
Correct answer? 20. Damn.
Yay! I was gonna go with 22, so I'm glad I didn't prices right this.
All right, Danny, you're now at 4-1. Andrew, you have to have a massive comeback here if you want to win.
All right, number 4.
Okay, which of the following is not an official Basketball Reference nickname for one of the current Blazers? Okay, I'm going to give you 5 nicknames. 4 of them appear on Basketball Reference. 1 does not.
Okay.
Starting with Mookie Doo, Legoland, Boo Butt, the Disruptor, and Tiger. So once again, that's Mookie Doo, Legoland, Boo Butt, the Disruptor, and Tiger. Only one of those is not real.
I'll say the Disruptor.
The Disruptor. Unfortunately, that's okay for Matisse Thybulle.
That was the only one that that was the only one that I recognized.
Oh, really? I thought that was like the lamest one when I saw it.
I did too. That's why I thought it was fake. Because like that could be a nickname for like almost anybody. Like obviously it's one for him, but it's like that's so lame.
So Danny, your remaining options: Mookie Doo, Legoland, Boo Butt, or Tiger.
Legoland.
I'm going with Boo Butt.
Boo Butt is a nickname for Time Lord.
No kidding.
Robert Boo Butt Williams. The made up one which shout out to user Otto Ingrado from the SyracuseFan.com message boards in 2011. He suggested Legoland for Jeremy Grant's nickname way back then.
Interesting.
Legoland.
You
Who's
know,
Mookie Do?
That is Malcolm Brogdon.
Yeah.
Never heard that before.
Do you know that one,
Tiger is
Danny?
DeAndre Ayton.
I knew it was one of these guys because I heard somebody say it at media day,
Oh,
but
okay.
I didn't know who it
Mookie
was.
Do. Mookie Do.
That's funny.
The
okay,
disruptor
Dan.
was the only one who I knew whose it was.
Ugh.
Let's go 8.
Question number 8. The last time Portland played a season without Damian Lillard, who led the team in assists?
Oh God, it's one of 2 people. God dang it. He's still around. Steve Blake.
That is incorrect.
Ah!
Your comeback could start right here.
So the year
la-
before,
The
Mhm.
year
he was
before,
in the league.
yeah. Who led the Blazers in assists?
Was this Thick Daddy Ray Felton?
You know it, Ray
Yes.
Felton. For 1 point.
God, that's
Blazers
right.
legend.
That was the mutiny year.
Okay, Andrew, this is big news because it is now 4-2. 2 questions
Woo.
left. If you get this
Woo.
next question right, it would be a tie game going into the final question.
Did we not do number 5 yet?
I
thought I remember hearing Danny say 5.
Yeah, we did. Oh my gosh, it's the final question.
There you
Yeah,
go.
Oh,
that's what I thought.
Andrew.
That's what I thought.
Oh, this is huge. Okay, if you get this right, game will be tied. The
I'm
pick
feeling
that was
nervous.
used to draft Damian Lillard was famously
Mm.
acquired in a trade with the New Jersey Nets and Billy King, who thought there were only 3 surefire picks in that year's draft. The pick wasn't all the Blazers got, however. Can you name one of the 2 players that were sent to Portland in that trade? So this is,
Oh,
of course,
my
the
word.
Gerald Wallace trade. Gerald Wallace going to
Yeah.
the New Jersey Nets. Who did the Blazers get back? They got back a pick, and they got back 2 players.
Oh my gosh. It's been so long since I've even thought about this. Oh my gosh.
One of my all-time favorite trades because of
It's a
Billy
great
King's
trade. It's a
justification.
great story.
Also, because if you look it up, apparently there's 3 surefire picks he thought were Anthony Davis, okay, Michael
Yeah.
Kidd-Gilchrist, and Thomas Robinson.
Oof.
Surefire.
Mm.
I don't know that I know this, Al.
Oh no, Andrew, are you forfeiting the week? Are you giving up?
No. I'm not.
Mm.
I don't want to because
All I've got is a guess because I just remember the pick because it was pretty important.
Yes, it was.
yeah. Golly. Because it was all about the pick.
Mm-hmm.
Or was it?
I just don't know that I know this.
Well, Andrew, Danny, do you have a guess? Did you have a guess?
Was Pavlovich a part of that?
He was not. So the name I don't think you would have ever gotten was Sean Williams. But the other
Oh God!
Sean Williams.
name, fantasy legend back in the day, because he was one of the few bigs who could hit threes. Mehmet Okur was in that trade.
That's right. They waived him immediately.
I have no memory of that whatsoever. None.
But
I
that means
totally-
that Danny, you
totally
win the
forgot
week.
about that.
4-2. Congratulations.
I need to find
Danny
a
Moran.
Memo Okur Blazers jersey. My goodness,
Hell yeah.
that's like the Rasheed Wallace Hawks jersey right there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
God.
Does it exist?
You know what does
Does it-
exist? Brogdon came to Portland and immediately took number 92. And there were a few Brogdon 92 jerseys I saw out in the wild.
Wow.
He didn't take 11 because Kevin Knox was currently wearing it. And apparently, instead of giving Knox, cutting off a little bit of money for him, he just waited till Knox got waived and then took the 11. So you can find a Malcolm Brogdon 92 jersey out there.
Oh,
Wow,
that's
Brogdon.
nice.
Very smart negotiator.
Yeah, you know,
That's-
just
Wait him out.
Just wait him out, man. Why spend money? That's a smart man. It's a veteran move. I know you're not going to be around.
Shout out to Danny for joining the show. Go check out the Jacked Ramsey's podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Hey, go hit subscribe on the YouTube channel for
Indeed.
Danny. Danny, thanks so much, man.
Hey, anytime, guys.
All right, Andrews, that was Blazers week. We love starting off the season with the Blazers. It's
Yeah.
a yearly tradition now.
It is. It's become literally a random tradition.
So that means we have 29 teams to potentially choose from for week 2 of the NBA season. We're going to spin this digital wheel and see where we land. Spinning the wheel.
Oh.
It's going to be the Hawks. All right, the Atlanta Hawks. How you feeling about that, Andrew?
I have no feeling about that. I am like I don't feel a thing about it.
So let's see. They're going to be playing New York. Okay, the Knicks
Yeah, that's at least a fun one. That's a fun matchup.
at the Bucks. So we'll get to see Dame again.
Yeah,
Then back to back against Minnesota. That's a really tough 3-game stretch there.
that's tough.
And then Wednesday, your Washington Wizards, Andrew, at home.
Hey, that's a big one. That's gonna be a big matchup. It's the Hawks are fascinating in that they're in the middle and that they're gonna have to make a decision on some stuff. And so I'm interested. I'm interested to hear more about the John Collins trade. I think that's kind of weird. Trae Young's position in the league.
Take over, please.
Yeah, there's certainly like a lot of things in flux for Atlanta, and this season is kind of important for them to decide where they're at. So yeah, I'm excited. I will say this. Now that I've talked myself into it, I'm excited to learn about the Atlanta Hawks a little bit more because they have been a team that I and most of the NBA community, unless you're a Hawks fan, have mostly just ignored. So I'm actually a little bit pumped for it now. Okay. Caw-caw. Yeah. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We'll read it on the show. We appreciate you guys so much for listening. Enjoy the weekend of basketball, and we will talk to you guys again next week.